Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And today, y'all, we are so excited to have an amazing guest, fellow podcaster, journalist, speaker, business leader, and a fierce advocate for strategic social impact and leader in ESG or environment social governance. And of course, there are so many other titles and accolades we should be filing under her name. And of course, guest appearance. But I think that would take the entirety of this episode. So I'm going to come back and we're going to welcome the amazing Joan Michelson. Yeah.
Aw, thank you guys. I'm thrilled to be here. I love stuff Mom never told you. I have to think about that for a while. Stuff my mother never told me. Yeah. Right. There's a lot of stuff my mother never told me. I got a newsflash for you.
That's consensus, I think, in general. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, I can do that. First, I want to say Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, here we are.
Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
What a way to celebrate.
Day. Yeah, absolutely.
Really? What a great way to celebrate.
Yeah, fabulous. So I will introduce me, but first I want to really acknowledge you guys because I love the range of stuff that you cover. You really, the combination of the intersectionality part, I mean, bringing pop culture and science and cool women and social activism and touche, bravo, my hat off. They can't see me. They can't see me applauding and bowing, but I am.
Oh, thank you.
So first I just want to really acknowledge that and acknowledge you guys. And I've got so many reactions to some of the cool guests you've had that we could talk for 5 hours, but I know we're not going to do that. Yeah, thanks for having me. I do a range of things. I do career consulting. I do ESG consulting. Thank you, Samantha, for defining it. And we can talk more about what that is exactly. It's basically the intersection of climate action and social justice and holding people accountable, transparency, that kind of thing. And we can dive more into that. I spent many years in corporate America. I have a podcast called Electric Ladies Podcast, which sounds very akin to Stuff Mom Never Told You. I have over 400 episodes. I've interviewed extraordinary women changing the world in some way that has to do with saving the planet. And I speak all over the place. I may have run into you wherever you're listening from. And I am just tickled pink to be here.
Well, we are so excited to have you. And yes, I was telling you at the beginning, before we got onto the to record, that the reason we were able to find you was we were talking about glaciologists and kind of featuring some on our Women Around the World or Feminists Around the World. And your podcast came up, and I was like, oh yeah, we have to have her on. The things that she's doing is not something that we often talk about, which is incorporating climate justice into corporate worlds, which we are going to talk about in a bit, but your podcast was right on in our lane essentially, and we had to have you on, and you've done some amazing interviews first and foremost, because I guess that's that journalist broadcast background that you have that I'm like, oh, we got to step up our game. We got this, Anney, we got this. But you have done some amazing works, and obviously you've got nominations and awards behind your name that actually give you the credit that you absolutely deserve. So I'm done fangirling, I promise. But we are so excited to have you.
Thank you. I coming from you guys, that means a ton. Yeah, I have to tell you, I really have been lucky to interview a lot of amazing women, and I've got some that haven't aired yet that are coming up that will blow you away too. And what I like most about these women is they're super successful. I mean, that's the Secretary of the Air Force, the Deputy Secretary of Transportation, the Chief Commercialization Officer of the Department of Energy, the Chief Sustainability Officer of General Motors, blah, blah, blah. I can go on. And yet they're cool, and they're people, and they're conversational, and they give great career advice. I give career advice in every episode. and they can just go back and forth between the science or the technology and the business world and just life, right? And they're totally cool and comfortable women, and they are all over the world. It's interesting. I was listening to your episode about SIHA, which is just an unbelievable organization. And I got familiar with, I think, one of the women that you were talking about who got an award from Hillary Clinton recently at the Georgetown Center for Women, Peace and Security. I know Milan Verveer, who founded it. She's amazing. For anybody who doesn't know, she's the first person to be the global ambassador for women and girls in the State Department. And what that means is that position is making sure that we, women and girls, needs, priorities, economic benefits, etc., healthcare, get integrated into every single foreign policy decision.
That's amazing.
Across the world. I mean, that's like unbelievable, right?
Right.
So, touche for featuring women like that. I really appreciate it. And I've had some women from Africa on my show as well doing extraordinary work, which we can talk about.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, thank you, because it's so helpful when we're doing research, because we do, as you said, it's a great thing to be able to cover like pop culture and everything. But it means that we don't get to like dig in necessarily to one thing too deeply. Like we don't get to specialize in something necessarily. Like we like to highlight people. We think that they should get their flowers now. But it's great that there is another show that is like ours, but gets to go more in depth on those things. So I just love that there's space for all of this, and it's great and it's all needed. So it's fantastic that we're having this crossover right now.
Yeah, I just want to add something to that, Anney, if I might. And that is the reason that I do what I do is because energy and climate affects every single aspect of our lives. So you guys love food, you love travel, you love, artists and music and whatever. And all of that requires obviously a planet, but it requires energy, it requires water, it requires, food. Is the food supply is being transformed by climate change and by ag tech. The innovations that are coming out of this stuff are making our lives better, not just protecting us from climate change. That's the impetus, but they're really making our lives so much better and bringing us really cool stuff like electric vehicles, which is one of my favorite topics altogether. By the way, I just want to say one thing. We're on the heels of the Super Bowl, and what hasn't gotten a lot of coverage, besides the fact, yes, I'm a total Taylor Swift fan. I'm a Swiftie on steroids, and I love that she's just so authentic and natural, is that Allegiant Stadium is actually a highly environmentally friendly stadium. It's run on a lot of renewable energy. They've taken a lot. I'm interviewing one of the people who spearheaded that effort, and they took a lot of efforts to make sure that. I mean, nobody talked about it, right? But they did a lot of work to make sure that massive facility didn't actually make the planet worse in the process.
Right.
So
that's cool. I did not know that.
Yes,
So much
that
learning.
is so cool. And those are the like amazing stories and interviews that we love and we love to hear, especially like women being involved in that, and because so often the story has been they don't get any credit or any mention at all that they're doing this amazing work in this thing. So it's really important to showcase those kinds of things. And to that end, to be transparent for us, until we were doing this research, I didn't know the term ESG. I didn't know what that meant. So do you mind breaking that down for us and maybe some of our listeners who also didn't know?
No, it's my pleasure. And, what you just said is the reason I started Electric Ladies podcast. It was originally called Green Connections Radio, by the way, but I got into the space when I was recruited by Chrysler to head up communications and co-head sales and marketing for their global electric motor cars. And I fell in love with the space. I mean, cool, smart people, making the world a better place, developing cool products, saving the planet, making money, and having jobs that were fascinating and all of that. But I kept noticing that the women who were in the space were not getting the microphone very often, literally and figuratively, and that there weren't enough women in the space. And so I would always use the influence that I had to try to get more women to get the microphone and to get more visibility and to get more decision-making power, whatever. And so when somebody came to me at a conference I spoke at and said, we'd like you to do a show on our network, and I've been advocating for women since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, I decided that I had to feature women because we have to raise, I mean, I know all these amazingly talented women who don't get either they don't get the juice, they don't literally get a microphone. I mean, they have all these panels, right? All male panels. Or they interview, the reporter goes for the guy who's the CEO or whatever, where it's the women who are doing the real work, or there's women who are chairman, and they go by chairman a lot, of the board, and some schmagag still asks them for coffee. And it's like, hello. Can you respect these people? I mean,
Right. Right.
So anyway, I have no feelings about this whatsoever. You can tell I have no passion for this whatsoever. So
Right up around.
I love ESG because it puts a name on what I've actually been doing like my whole career, which is really cool. So it's about the core of what you guys talk about, which is intersectionality. It's the ultimate intersectionality. It's the E part is environment, which is the climate, the planet, water, energy, air, and it's also the workplace environment. I mean, COVID taught us nothing. It's like workplace matters, right? So it's the environment, it's buildings. Buildings are 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. My episode this week is with the chief sustainability officer of a company that's handling that a lot. So environment, E is environment, and you can use that it can be your home. It can be the planet, right? And natural resources. So the S is all the stakeholders, it's women's rights, it's voting rights, it's climate justice, it's social justice, it's whatever ethnicity or orientation you care to define yourself as. It's the rights of any stakeholder, including the planet. The community and the planet are stakeholders. And then governance, in a nutshell, is really about accountability and transparency. So it's about the reporting you have to do to the government. It's regulators, of course, but it's also authenticity. It's like in today's world, with all the media and people like you and me, putting a microphone in people's faces all the time, and social media, of course, you can't hide. You can't pretend. And so you have to be transparent. There's a huge move towards transparency. The SEC is coming out with new rules that are going to be mandatory requirement for companies to declare this stuff. And one other quick point I'll put on this is there's something called the Edelman Trust Barometer, which they do every year, and they launch it at these big fancy conferences. And they've found for the last several years that business has the highest amount of trust in the economy, not government, not media, but business. And so there's a responsibility to handle the environment piece and the social justice piece, and to be transparent and accountable and authentic. And that, in a nutshell, is what ESG is. And you can use ESG, you can, whatever nomenclature works for you guys, I'll roll with it. So I don't want anybody to get their knickers in a twist over the nomenclature. And I just want to say two other things. One is, no matter where you're based, that's where you guys are in Atlanta, I'm in DC, wherever our listener is, you are affected by climate change. You may not feel it directly. I mean, your chances are, you're either dealing with a snowstorm, a rainstorm, a drought, wildfire, whatever. but also in the quality of the air you breathe and the quality of the water you drink, and anything in your world, you are, wherever you are in the world, literally, you are affected by climate change. And there's also opportunities behind that too, which we can talk about. That's my soliloquy for the moment.
No, I love it. So we were going to ask how ESG kind of could be outside of corporations, because I know your concentration when it comes to the podcast is specific to corporations. What does that look like for us? No? Okay. Yeah. Well, you do feature a lot of like philanthropy, nonprofits, all of the different levels. I see you just do such an amazing job in what it feels like accountability for corporations, which oftentimes we don't see that, I think. And then to see that women are the ones who are doing it is even more impressive. Like, it's just one of the things. But how do we carry that as maybe we're not big leaders? Maybe we're not the new up and head CEO of this and that. How do we put that into our own workplaces? Does that make sense?
Totally. So we have power. Women make 85% of the purchase decisions on the planet. Think about that. Make or influence.
It's true.
So, girlfriend, we got power. Okay? Seriously, we can, we have to vote. Hello, vote. Vote for people that care about the things that you care about. If you're listening to this, chances are you've got a certain set of values, right? So vote your ballot and get your butt out to vote, people, please. Especially this year, it's really important. I feature really the wide range of people doing stuff in climate space. I'll give you a couple of cool examples. I know you guys love pop culture. I interviewed this amazing woman in New York who started a company that reduces the carbon footprint of television and movie productions. Think about that. I mean, if you think about all the buildings they blow up, the cars they blow up, the food, stuff, the cater. I've never been on on some of these sets, and Atlanta is hot for this right now too. And I know Tyler Perry in his Atlanta studio has done a lot to reduce their carbon footprint. So, I mean, that's amazing, right? And then I have singers who are doing what's called a climate cabaret, where they're doing an event to raise awareness and things like that. And people who are making art out of recycled materials. They're making documentaries about the topic, or just regular stories about it, movies about it. So it really is the full range. I mean, yes, I have a lot of corporates. I have a bunch of government people and nonprofits. And then you have people who tie them together. Like, I just interviewed a woman from Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. They help individuals and companies put their philanthropic dollars into saving the planet in a way that's constructive and that, where the needs are anywhere in the world. And of course, we talked a lot about helping women do this. And there's some amazing women. We talked about Africa a minute ago, in Africa and in parts of the US that are doing work to help rural women gain an education while addressing the climate issues in their area, water, hello, right? And environmental, clean air, all kinds of environmental hazards and clean energy. I mean, we still have these horrible stoves that are polluting women all over the world. So let me just put it this way. No matter what kind of work you do and where you do it, you can both do something that helps reduce the risk of climate change, reduce the carbon footprint or whatever. And you can also do something that helps create a solution. So let me give you an example. And some of my coaching clients come to me and they say, oh, I have to quit my job and change careers and go to work for a nonprofit because I want to help save the planet. And I'm like, hold on a minute. No, just hold your horses here. You don't have to quit, because wherever you work now you can start a green club. You can hold the company accountable for recycling and look at their carbon footprint. You can help with the corporate sustainability report. You can say, hey, I love my job. Is there some way I can do a project that helps facilitate reducing the energy of the building, or reaching people in another area, or working with the foundation? So you can always find a way that whatever you do can help address the challenge. And it makes your job more fulfilling in the process, too. And on top of that, there's this huge funding from the government that came about from the last Congress under Nancy Pelosi that allocates $3 trillion with a T dollars and tax benefits for these kinds of projects. So let me give you an example. If your house gets cold and you have leaky windows, you can now get money or tax credits to fix the windows and the doors so that you lower your energy bill, you save leaking energy, and you warm up your house.
I'm going to need you to send me that information for my house.
I'll be happy to.
Me too.
Absolutely, I'm happy to.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
Yeah, you can buy an electric vehicle. You can get a charger in your house with this stuff. And if you have a business, you can do the same thing. If you've been complaining that your assembly line is messing up and you have to fix it too often, if you choose a replacement that reduces the carbon emissions of that manufacturing system, or reduces the water it consumes, etc., you can get money for doing it, or tax credits, and reduce your cost for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, who would not want to do this?
I'm telling you, I need you to send me all this information.
I will be happy to.
Directly
Season
to
right now.
I know. Let me get this done. Prepare for next year.
Absolutely. I interviewed a woman who does, Lauren Sauls, who's CEO of a company called Sealed, who helps with the heat pumps thing. I mean, it's just, I can give you 80,000 resources. There's websites that the government put out. If you just Google resources for infrastructure and Inflation Reduction Act, it'll come up. But this is what I'm saying. No matter what kind of business you have, no matter what kind of career you have, and all these businesses and all these nonprofits and all these facilities need everything. They need HR, they need finance, they need technology, they need communications, they need management. So no matter what you do, what your skill set is, you can find a way to make money and make a difference. And bleeping vote, please.
And bleeping, yes.
Bleeping
I like
vote.
that a lot. You kind of just reminded me, kind of on a different subject, of like a conversation I had with my dad recently, because I used to be in social work, and specifically in social justice when it comes to child advocacy, and working with teens. But like I went from that to this, which is podcasting and hosting. And of course, I think it's important, and Anney does an amazing job in making sure we get information out there and hopefully inspire people to think differently, or, learn new things. But it feels so different that my father, who is conservative, was like, are you still making the difference though? But are you, like questioning whether or not? And I had to really think back. I was like, well, I think so. And just like realizing, just because I'm not doing the grunt work of what I think is service is not necessarily the same thing equating to not helping, I guess, is that, and I'm like, yeah, there's things that need to be done. These different specific fields have to be infiltrated, for the lack of a better term, to make real change, because the people who are already out there needing or doing that help, they know this. It's the people who haven't realized and can't see what can change, and having people come in and having that conversation of how that kid could be different, or differences can be made in those fields. And like having these conversations that you have with people in different fields, women in different fields, and how they bring it in is really inspirational.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I just want to tell your dad, if you're listening, Samantha is making more of a difference doing this, because she's reaching more people. I mean, I love, the one kid at a time. I mean, that's one kid at a time, and that's
right.
Yeoman's work, man. I mean, power to you. It's just not, seriously. And you're giving a voice to so many more people now. You're reaching so many more people now. instead of just one at a time.
Joan, I'm going to have you on speed dial just so that I can get these
That's
pep talks
fine.
from you.
Oh, I have friends like that. I'm like, okay, so, and clients like that. It's like, when you're feeling like crap, just text me and I'm there. But seriously, and this is why, I just want to say this. Part of what I love about what you guys are doing is, and I'm actually writing a book about this, but women bring a completely important point of view to this work and to anything we do. Women bring this combination of idealism to whatever task, whatever career, and whatever skill set and industry we're in and we bring. And it makes a huge difference. We're in the age now where we need that framing in order to solve challenges that address this intersectionality of people and planet. And capitalism is good. Making money is good. We all need it. We want abundance. It's not anti-making money. It's doing all of it at once, that none of them have to suffer in order to succeed. And so I would pose it that you're making a bigger difference, Miss Samantha, doing this work, or an equal difference in this work. So, Dad, she's cool.
Yes.
Just send that.
That's what I was waiting for.
Dad,
I'm gonna advertise this. I'm gonna put this in a card. Send it.
Send me one. I'll send it. I'll put it on Instagram or something. I'll share it.
Sign up on it.
I'll totally share it. Absolutely. You got it, girl.
I love it.
I love it.
Well, so we've been talking about your podcast and how amazing it is, how that's how we found you. And through your work, you've done such a great job of highlighting women who are leaders, who are doing these amazing things, all these accomplishments that they're doing. So I know you've given us a couple of examples before we started recording and during, but can you talk about some maybe instances of women who really stood out to you, who are pioneers, who are leaders, who have influenced you?
Oh, wow. Okay. How much time do you have? So there are, frankly, and I'm not being coy, but really every single one of my guests inspires me and somewhat intimidates me. I interviewed Dr. Vanessa Chan, who I just adore. She's the Chief Commercialization Officer of the Department of Energy. She's the one who's helping dole out all this money, right, on the energy side. She's extraordinary. And she was at McKinsey. She's been an entrepreneur. Okay, you guys love pop culture. She actually sold products successfully on QVC, and something that has nothing to do with energy whatsoever. This woman is like unbelievable. She's like MIT, the energy department, and QVC. Really.
My mother would love her.
MIT and QVC.
And she's a mom of 2 girls. And I was like, good grief. Like, wait, did you find more than 24 hours in a day?
Right. Wow.
Like, where does this happen? So, and she's lovely. She's very, approachable and conversational and funny and dedicated. It's really, really interesting. Then there's people like Rosemary Atieno, who is in Kenya, who is helping her people, the women in Kenya, solve everyday challenges in a way that also addresses climate change. Now, let me give you an example. So she told me a story. She has a group called Women Climate Centers International and another related group. And she told me the story of a woman coming to her and telling her that the village was having an epidemic of cholera. So Rosemary helped this woman, went to the village, checked everything out, helped this woman get a whole new water system for their community. And she got money from different sources. You'd have to listen to it to find out exactly where. And help this community get clean water, get money from sources they didn't know, get the economic development that came with it, get the education on how to solve a problem and resources for improving their education. The kids could be healthy. Everybody got healthy. They eradicated cholera in the community. They got the kids an education, so the kids could have the time now, and the women aren't having to go chase water And if you've ever been to Africa, they chased water. I mean, literally, I have pictures you can't see, but I have a wall in my living room with pictures from Africa. And they literally carry the water, so they didn't have to do that anymore. And so it was like an unbelievable win-win-win-win-win. And her motivation was addressing the climate challenge while helping this woman solve her immediate problem. I mean, how much more inspiring can you possibly get? So I feel privileged to have the opportunity to talk to these women.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many amazing people doing amazing work. And I find a lot of times when we do our episodes on feminists around the world or on another segment we have called Female First, it always ends with wanting to leave a better future. It almost always ends with somebody, a woman, and women being more impacted by whatever issue, who not only takes this initiative to listen to people in the community and fix the problem and work together with people to fix the problem, but also there's such a big, like, in their minds, I want this future, even after I'm gone, for other people. And that's just so amazing and inspirational.
Totally. And I want to give you one other quick story. And of course, I mean, I've interviewed over 400 women on my show. I mean, I don't match you guys with like 2,600 or something wild, but I'm at 400 and something, so I'm pretty good. But one of the women I interviewed is the former finance minister of Ukraine, who also went on to help Puerto Rico rebuild after Hurricane Maria. And in the course of our conversation, she said to me two things. One is, she said she felt like when the war broke out, that what am I doing in Puerto Rico? I need to get back to Ukraine. And she said, then I realized that the work I'm doing where I am can help Ukraine rebuild. And that the voice that I have now and on the outside can help Ukraine get the resources that they need. So no matter where you sit right now, what kind of work you do, I don't care if you have a company that makes cups or shirts. There's a ton I cover on sustainable fashion, for example. You can find a way to do it in a way that reduces the carbon footprint. She also said to me that this concept, these ESG reports, can actually help reveal creepy money because they require disclosure. So that's the other thing, is that you want to support these reporting mechanisms because they're going to help disclose information about some of these companies that you want to know. See other place where we have power, okay? We can spend our money with organizations and with companies that that share our values. If they don't support LGBTQ rights, if they don't support reproductive rights, if they don't support democracy, or they're trying to thwart it in some way, or they don't support whatever whatever you support, if they're against it, use your money to go put it with somebody else.
Right. Right.
I have no passion for this whatsoever.
Well, I was going to say,
I could go on.
You are very passionate with your work, but also you are very skilled in your work in all of this. And it's such a route. Your career is such a route that I would have never thought of. Again, because my mind was, if I want to be in service, I have to be sad and poor, which is a really sad mentality. But you've done such amazing work, and your career path has been amazing. How did you get in your line of work?
Oh, dear Samantha.
I got the big question.
I followed the breadcrumbs, my sweet friend. Well, in case you haven't figured it out, I'm a born and bred New York City girl. And my dad, I joke that I've been doing this since pre-birth, because my dad had an ad agency when I was a kid in New York City. And I'm the youngest of four. And he would literally pull copy out of the typewriter. Yes, it was a typewriter. And hand it to the closest warm body and say, read this out loud to me. So I'm convinced that the first thing I read out loud was probably my father's copy. So and he was brilliant and creative and fascinating. And they were also political activists in a way. They used to have political fundraisers, including for women candidates, by the way. They would have, we would talk about current events and those kinds of things, very, very worldly oriented. Of course, in New York City, you kind of can't get away from it, right? I mean, you by nature, right? And the other thing is, I followed opportunity. So I started my career, I've gone back and forth between corporate communications and journalism. And I think one of the lessons for me is ask. If there's an opportunity you're interested in, I don't care if you only fit 50% of the criteria. I don't care if you only fit, they want a PhD and you don't have one. Write them and tell them you're willing to get a PhD, okay, in your cover letter or whatever. Go for what you want. I'll give you a great example. I have a coaching client who interviewed with job A, and they said, you're not appropriate for job A, but we want to interview you for job B. They wouldn't have known about her for job B if she didn't apply for job A, right? So I sought opportunities, and I got my first job, or not my first, but one of my first jobs in journalism by reaching out to Diane Sawyer and saying, I want to be you. What should I do? I mean, literally cold.
That's amazing.
She replied.
I was going to say, did she respond?
She responded. I did some freelance work with her in New York. She's lovely. She's fascinating. And totally authentic, really interesting woman. And so you have to and then when I was at 60 Minutes and I was at 60, and then I got another kind of corporate opportunity that was fascinating, which ended up putting me at the LA, believe it or not, LA mass transit system, helping to expand that, and which gave me a whole nother set of experience. And here I am back in a kind of, an intersection with transportation and the green economy. I mean, who knew, right? And then I go to work for Christ. I mean, it's like you never know how these fit together until later. And you take pieces from each of it that you learn. You don't learn less. Mm-hmm. Whatever you learn in job A or in entrepreneurship B, or from what I call mini mentoring moments where you just ask somebody, say, I'm dealing with this. Can I get your advice on this? And then you take that in, and you never know what impact it's going to have on you. I mentioned before we went on air about this fascinating woman that I interviewed, she called herself a glaciologist, and I joked with her. I thought that was frozen dead people, but it's actually glaciers, the study of glaciers. Twyla Moon, Dr. Twyla Moon, what a great name. Mm-hmm. I love her. And she said something really interesting. I asked for career advice in every episode, and she said, reconsider your goals all the time, because you might have grown out of your goal. You might be able to do something else now that is more interesting and more akin and more aligned with who you are now and what you know now and who you know now. Mm-hmm. In other words, don't let, I always wanted to be an X. I always wanted to be a doctor. I always wanted to be a lawyer. I always wanted to be a social worker. I always wanted to be an actress. I always wanted to be a whatever, journalist. Hold you back from letting a job fall in your lap. I mean, my job at Chrysler, which got me into this economy, was a complete and total bleeping fluke. I mean, literally, I was at a lunch meeting talking to people. I didn't know who I was talking to. I mean, what roles they were, whatever. We go around the table, and I found out the guy I'm talking to is the president of the division. The next morning, he calls me and says, "Are you happy?" and starts recruiting me. So you never know who you're talking to.
I guess that's the benefits of being an extrovert right here.
Well, you have to behave, okay? You have to be careful what you say. I mean, you can't, yes. I mean, seriously, you can't, you can't badmouth people to other people. Of course. Right? So, I mean, I'm just going to say that because we're among friends, right? I mean, it's the Galentine's Day show. Yes. So I would just say it's a long-winded answer to your question, Samantha, but I would say the short answer is seek opportunities, ask for opportunities, and be who you are and embrace who you are and what you love to do, and be willing to learn. Curiosity is a key criteria right now. The chief diversity officer of General Motors, Telva Magruder, who's magical, she's now back heading up manufacturing. She's been there for 29 years or something. She's extraordinary. She's also on the board of the Girl Scouts, by the way. She said some of the key factors they look for in talent are adaptability and curiosity, because people have to learn all the time. You're never staying static. So keep learning. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how young you are. I don't care where you live, what you do, what your skill set is. Forget about it, as they say in my hometown, and just be curious and keep learning.
Yeah. That fits in perfectly with your career path. It really does. I was like, okay, yeah, I see this. The theme of your career is in those statements in itself. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And making a difference. I always wanted to use what I was doing to make a difference. And I collect people. I mean, I have wonderful people in my world, and it's a privilege. And now I get to add you guys.
I know. That's one of my favorite parts of podcasting is getting new friends.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is true. Whether you want it or not.
Whether you're here.
And I mean, I'll add to that, and I'm biased because I do it, but coaching or mastermind groups or outside information is really helpful. You need to have a support group, and I don't, it can be formal, it can be informal, but we're joking before that, when you feel bad, you'll ping me to get a cheer up. But we need that, right? We need to support each other, and you also need people who are going to tell you stuff that you might not want to hear, but is helpful. The proverbial spinach in your teeth, or whatever, right?
Oh,
exactly.
Yes.
Would rather hear it.
It is helpful.
Yeah, or
That's
if
friend.
you're, and it goes to everything from dating to, food to, saying something stupid to your boss. I mean, believe me, I've done it.
Me too. Well, so you're speaking about kind of collecting these friends, interviewing these amazing women. Why do you think it's important for women to be part of leadership in this corporate world?
Oh my, how much time do you have, Miss Anney?
We just have a whole mini-series of this point.
Yes.
Because I think it's important for women to be part of leadership because we bring a different set of perspectives, experiences, values, and lenses to every challenge. And I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a classic business story of General Motors many years ago launching a car called Nova in Mexico, Latin America. Well, Nova means don't go in Spanish. Why would you launch a car that's called basically doesn't move in a country with the name? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
So you need to have, and all these companies want to sell products to women. I mean, for years, CPG, consumer product companies, didn't have women on their boards or in their management team. And it's like, dude, you don't understand your market. And don't tell me you do. And if somebody says to you, oh, I know my market, I don't need research, run the other direction. Because, data matters, right? So I think women bring values, we bring curiosity, we bring collaboration, we bring the ability to support each other. We don't punch me in the nose for saying this, men, but we teach you how to collaborate. Because men are kind of conditioned to be solo, the hunting and the gathering, and they don't need to be. They don't have to be alone. They can be supported, and we bring a supportive, collaborative environment. We want everybody's ideas. We bring a different kind of value screening. We look at the impact on other people. Women tend to naturally also be innovators. And again, I'm writing about this in this book I'm doing, but think about this for a second. Women have not had access to resources and power in traditional institutional structures, okay? They didn't have, I mean, there's still only 8% or whatever it is today of women, of CEOs or women of the Fortune 500. I mean, give me a bleeping break, please. There's so few resources and so little authority in the hands of women that we have had to figure out how to get things done without the power and the resources. So we had to learn to innovate. We had to learn how to do influence management, how to influence people. We had to learn how to collaborate because we couldn't get anything done otherwise. So women are natural innovators and natural problem solvers in creative ways because we had to be. It's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. And this is a muscle that we've had to super strengthen just in order to get things done. And it's not like we set out to do it that way. It's not like weight training, you know. So that's a key reason why I think it's a combination of values, of innovativeness, collaboration, communication skills, and the fact that women make and influence 85% of purchasing decisions, both in corporate and consumer today, that besides we're fun and we're cool.
Amen.
We're just fun and cool.
It's a true story.
Yeah. And creative. So, yeah.
Very creative.
Women rock.
We talked about this recently, and I've seen a lot of headlines about it, going back to the Super Bowl about, oh yeah, women
who buy
stuff. What?
Yeah, who buys things? Who's in charge
Even
of the household
though there's
buying?
the stereotype that we buy too much. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a very interesting thing where suddenly companies are like, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we should pivot. We should pivot our campaigns. So I know we've been talking about this throughout, but as you said in your podcast, you have a bit where you give career advice in every episode. So for a lot of our listeners, probably are not in, some of them I'm sure are, and please write in listeners, but are not in the sustainability, environmental sector. And you've already given some tidbits, but do you have any advice on maybe ways that people can implement climate justice into their own jobs, their businesses, maybe if they have them, and or their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, one of the things about the new funding that's also cool from the government is that there's this thing called Justice 40, where 40% of the benefits of the project have to go to disadvantaged communities. So climate justice is built into the structure of those deals, which is really cool, right? And it's also important because disadvantaged communities have gotten in many ways the brunt of climate change because a lot of the coal plants are built, you know, a lot of the quote low income housing and affordable housing is built near coal plants or power plants or whatever, right? Or water treatment plants and stuff, and it's not as cool. So now they have to clean all that stuff up. But I would say no matter what kind of job you have or work you do or organization you work for or business you have, think about get a readout on your carbon footprint. It's not that hard to do. And you can listen to Electric Ladies podcast, get some resources, or Mike can, ping me and at Joan Michelson on any of the bleeping platforms you care about. But you can find, you're going to get a readout on your carbon footprint. You want to get a sense of where your energy is coming from. How are you heating your home? How are you heating your business? What's the air quality in your space? Because it's a matter of taking care of your health and the health of your employees, if you're a business owner, or your team, if you're a manager. And then you want to look at where are the materials coming from that you use in your product. So that's why I do a lot on sustainable fashion. Yes, I love fashion. I love clothes. But the fashion industry has an enormous carbon footprint. I mean, don't get me started, okay? To make an original pair of jeans takes 4,000 gallons of water. I mean, they've cut it down a lot, but it's appalling. And so there are a lot of companies and organizations that are doing a lot of work to reduce the carbon footprint of their clothing and manufacturing process. And there's some very cool innovators. I have many people on my guests on my show about it, for example. And so choose clothing that is made from sustainable fabrics. And I don't care if you're looking at shoes or shirts or sweaters or whatever, decide deliberately whether that's going to matter to you. And a lot of them are pricing them much more reasonably now. And there are lines and there are whole companies that are doing this. So you can find the information. You look up sustainable fashion or shoes made sustainably or what have you. I mean, everybody from Nike to H&M is in this work. So look at how you're spending your own money. Look at where, even if what you're doing is, okay, let me give you another example. If you're in IT, God knows we need your skill because the data is really critical. So if you're an employee, ask your boss what kind of data you can help the company collect that will help them understand their carbon footprint and their social footprint and address it and be responsible for it. Like, what kind of reporting do they have to do? Do they have what they need? I'd like to use my skills to help solve that. And again, you're asking, you're volunteering, you'll get cool projects. You never know what you'll end up working on. And they might say no, but A, you made the effort. B, it might come back later. I had a woman on my show. This is a different context, but it's an example. She had 2 little kids, and as she was walking out she worked for a big financial institution. She was walking out of her boss's office one day. She said, by the way, don't eliminate me for opportunities overseas because I have 2 kids. And she walked out. Have a nice day. 2 to 3 weeks later, he came to her and said, we'd like to offer you an opportunity in Hong Kong. You have to tell people what you want.
Yeah.
If you want to work on these projects, get creative. Mm-hmm. Look at, what your business is, understand what the strategy of your business is and who they're marketing to, and say, hey, CEO, CFO, VP of yada, yada, I see this and I can do X, and I'm wondering, or you're launching this project I just saw on the Slack channel. How do I get involved in that? Mm-hmm. That really resonates with me. Mm-hmm. Or can I start an ERG, an employee resource group for women? I recently was on an employee resource group, a media company show just for internal employees that's targeted to their employee resource groups. They said, oh, well, we're going to share this one with every group. And I'm like, cool. Mm-hmm. So you never know. You have to tell people. They're not bleeping mind readers, people. And also a lot of it, Anney and Samantha, it comes from standing up for yourself. Mm-hmm. It's not even just confidence. It's like, do I want to do this or don't I?
Right.
I mean, what's the worst that could happen? They say no.
Right.
I think you can handle that. Sometimes. You're in that space now. I mean, seriously, if they said no, you're still right where you are now, right?
Right.
So just bleeping go for it. And if you need encouragement, you need ideas. I mean, I'm happy to talk to anybody who's listening who wants to, come to me. I obviously do this kind of work and coaching. I have people come to me going everything from fresh out of college to I've been a foreign service officer for 20 years. I just came back to the States. I want to get into the space. What should I do? I mean, so it doesn't matter. And by the way, don't let your age, your gender, your location, any way you live your life get in the way of any of these opportunities. We need you. We need your voice. We need your energy. We need your intellect. We need your passion.
You're going to get so many alerts, people asking you things.
It's okay.
People
That's cool.
Help. But I love in your segments, and you actually have like separate episodes in which you ask your guests. So we're going to ask you specifically for mid-career women, in which you describe as people who've been in their career 10 to 15 years. How would you give them advice to make money, but also make a difference?
Well, I've shared many ways in our conversation today,
Right.
But I want to say this. Think about your goals based on who you are now. Don't think about, oh, well, I pull out your goals from, last year or whatever. And I wanted to be VP of yada, yada, or I wanted to get my XYZ degree or whatever. Just think about, make a list, first of all, of what you've accomplished. We're sitting here in February. So think about last year. And I mean everything. I mean, I made a list of how many podcasts episodes I've aired, how many people I interviewed, how many articles I wrote, how many clients I coached, how many projects, yada, yada, right? How many other articles, it's like everything. It's like, how many times did you go hiking? How many friends did you help in XYZ way? I mean, it gets to everything, right? Did you get a new house? Did you decide to move to another city? Did you, whatever it is, relationships, etc. And then look at what kind of work do you want to do now? How do we spend so much of our time in what we do for a living. So many, people say, well, why do you focus on what we do for a living? Because it's how it dominates our lives, people. And it's a reflection, it's our output, it's our mark in the universe. And I don't care if it's paid or unpaid, it's our mark in the universe in so many ways. So think about, how do you want to spend your time? What kind of difference do you want to make? Is it in working with kids like you were doing, Samantha? Is it in the climate? Is it in both? Teaching kids STEM careers so they can have a career to help save the planet, right? So then look at the intersection of who you are, absorb the kudos from what you've accomplished, right? Read your resume, your bio if you get depressed, and where the market is now. And don't be afraid to go for something that looks a little sideways. So one way I describe it is we are each a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle. And right now, our jigsaw puzzle looks like being on this podcast, and we do the articles, we do the media stuff, we do the social work, we do the climate action, we do all these little things, right? So right now, the puzzle looks like who we are today that we see in the mirror. Well, each of our puzzles is composed of the pieces of what we know, who we know, what we know how to do, where we live, et cetera, how we comport ourselves, the experiences we've had, and you can rearrange those puzzle pieces and create a whole new picture. So when I went from journalism to electric vehicles, I created a whole new puzzle, right? But it's still me. It's still the same skills. They're just rearranged. So you can rearrange them no matter what kind of work you're doing now or where you're in school or how you spend your time, and figure out what a good fit is for you. And to be honest with you, every aspect of our economy needs help right now. And every aspect of our economy needs women's help right now. Because we have to bring our values and our perspectives and our curiosity and our collaboration to any of this work. So go for it and ask for help.
Love that. Felt like I was just at a good TED Talk, like an amazing TED Talk just now. I'm not gonna lie.
I feel like
the
we're getting
information
like
I just pulled in. I know.
Thank you. That's very
That's
sweet.
so good.
I appreciate that.
It is true.
You guys are fabulous.
I won't tell the story right now because I've told it a million times, but I basically got this job because I was just really enthusiastic.
She tried. Yeah.
It's like, hey.
It's true.
But
enthusiasm is contagious too.
If you feel like you can't do a thing because it's not in a certain lane, but so many of us have like a talent here and a talent here, and it doesn't have to be in a box. It can be, I can apply it in this creative way that maybe I wasn't thinking of. So I think that's great advice. We like to ask this to a lot of our interviewees who have done so much stuff and are clearly like very busy. What do you do for yourself? How do you take time for yourself?
Well, I love what I do. So to me, my work is integrated with who I am. And so talking to you guys is for me too. I mean, it's a blast. So I'm an exercise person. So I've been exercise is a big deal for me, and I walk a lot. I like hikes. I'm also a culture. I mean, I'm born and bred New York City girl, so I love culture. So museums are my happy place. I walk in and I just like close my eyes and breathe. They go, ah, and I inhale the creative energy. I mean, literally, my friends think I'm nuts. They see me do this and they go, "What the hell are you doing?" Yeah, it's just I love the magic of creativity. It's just like, where the hell did that come from, right? Movies, some TV. I mean, I'm a journalist, so I watch a lot of news. I love reading. I love great writing. I just read a biography of Nora Ephron. That was fun. And then I did in fact, it's interesting because she tells a story in there. It was written it's a biography, not an autobiography. And the woman tells a story about, Nora Ephron wrote a play about women and clothing, and I forget the name of it offhand. But anyway, it inspired me, so I did a story about women, clothing, and identity, and how more women are choosing sustainable clothing now as part of their values and identity. It's really interesting. So I go out with friends and hang out with people, and I have a lot of great friends and things like that. So movies, events. I'm going to the Kennedy Center this week, so that'll be fun. I'm very excited. I love that stuff. Yeah, so I do a lot of fun things, but my work is also fun.
Soon it'll include you coming to Atlanta and we hanging out as friends.
Definitely.
And going out together, right? Or we can come to New York, which we've been talking about anyway, so we could just do that.
Well, I'm in DC. I'm in DC.
I just got lost. You're right. Actually, we're talking about going to DC.
From New York, but
yes, I keep getting confused. We are talking about going to DC. So we'll do it that way. We could all just go to New York together as a trip.
There you go. We could do that. We could totally do that. Absolutely do that.
Options.
Record a show live at iHeart and either in Rockville or DC or New York or who knows.
Yeah. We got to do it all to go up that way. Yes. Hot Atlanta, which is not so hot right now. It is rainy.
It is very
cold. It's kind of sunny right now. And it's cold. Well, before we wrap up, do you have anything else you would like to tell the listeners?
I think I would like to tell your listeners, first of all, listen to Electric Ladies podcast. Yeah. Seriously, let me know if you want any help or input on this, whether for your organization or for you. And you can find it on electricladiespodcast.com. But I also want to say, have a different definition of risk. So I have lived in extreme hot and extreme cold. I've lived in 8 states. I've been moved around for work. And have an adventurous spirit. I mean, if somebody had told me that I would be living in Las Vegas when I lived there, I would have looked at them like they had 10 heads. If somebody had told me that I would be living in Fargo, North Dakota, which I did with Chrysler, I would look at them like they had just swallowed acid. So, you never know, but both opportunities changed my life dramatically in wonderful ways. I'm obviously not there anymore. I found my weather limits, ladies. I found my weather limits. I swung 180 degrees in 18 months, and I found my weather limits. But, I learned something from it. And so don't be afraid of, I don't know what's going to happen. Go for it, for Christ's sake. The adventure of it. The worst that happens is you hate it and you leave.
Yeah.
So think about risk differently. Think about how you'll feel if you don't do it and you'll regret not having done it. Or not having gone to meet, the blind date or whatever, right? So just have a different definition of risk. And take your career by the horns. Take charge of it. You are CEO of your life.
That's right.
And treat it that way.
I love that.
Other than that, I have no opinion on the matter.
All right.
I'm going to follow up about this date, but yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I love when we get to have these collaborations and crossovers because we found your research and your interviews, and here we are, and it's great. So thank you so much. We will be meeting up at some point at some time.
Yes, it's going to happen.
Yes, and if you ever want to come back, let us know. You're welcome.
Please come back.
We would love to have another conversation. But in the meantime, where can our good listeners find you?
electricladiespodcast.com. Ladies is spelled out Ladies. Podcast.com. My handle everywhere is at Joan Michelson. I think my show also has at Electric Ladies Podcast or at Electric Gals Pod, speaking of Galentine's Day. And I'm on all the social media. I don't do as much on TikTok. Thank you for sharing, but I'm, a lot on LinkedIn, and I'll still call it Twitter. I can't help it. And Instagram, whatever, you'll find me. But I think LinkedIn and Twitter and my website, you can find more information there that you ever want to know. You can follow my stories on Forbes. I've written hundreds of stories on this stuff on Forbes. I give a lot of career advice on Forbes. And I do career coaching and book coaching and ESG consulting and speaking and stuff. So if I can inspire your audience or you, do reach out. I am always happy to connect.
You're going to start getting messages like, my dad said
I'm telling you. Just a few. That's fine.
Yes,
that's
and you
good.
have a book.
We like and get, yes, and I'm working on a book. Hopefully it'll be out later this year. Well,
okay.
Fingers crossed.
We're going to look out for it.
You'll have to let us know.
Yeah. Congrats on your book.
Yes.
I saw you guys
Thank
did that.
you. We want to celebrate yours because I remember how stressful it was.
Exactly. We're going to support you in your quest.
Thank you.
And then come back on the show and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Well, it's perfectly aligned with what we've been talking about.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Listeners, if you would like to contact us, you can. Our email is stephanieandmomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter @momstuffpodcast or on TikTok and Instagram @Stuff I Never Told You. We have a TeePublic store, and yes, we do have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.